Welcome to part 2 of the most ridiculous variants for every single fighter in Skullgirls. In the previous video we talked about Annie, Beowulf, and Big Bad. Today we'll be talking about Black Dahlia, Sarabella, and Double. So, whatever Black Dahlia I face, I just easily get overwhelmed because of her jumping all around, and I don't really know much of her blockbusters and even special moves, but this one, it's simple. Corrosive Agent takes the cake. I even chose her for the pity system because she's that strong. So what she does, her signature ability, remove all debuffs, first of all, and gain 1 stack of barrier when either fighter uses a blockbuster. Alright, so you're fighting some corrosive agent. You rely on your blockbusters to deal damage. You want to maybe do some let's just say death crawl, right? Because it has nice bleeding chance. And then Black Dahlia goes, oh, you know what? Thank you for using a blockbuster. And then she just gets this barrier that pretty much nullifies your blockbuster, and even she can decide, you know what, I can use a blockbuster and keep cycling and cycling, and there we go. You got flippin' 5 stacks of barrier. And on top of that, she removes any sort of debuff she received. And let's just say she reached those 5 stacks of barrier. What's next? Guess what? With 5 stacks of barrier, this is her secondary signature ability, all shots are unblockable and inflict slime on hit for 5 seconds. That's right. If you dare use some blockbuster, and if she uses some blockbuster, let's say she somehow reached 5 barriers, well, guess what? It will become impossible to block her attacks. This is why a lot of players hate facing Corrosive Agent. Not just me. This is probably worldwidely agreed to be the worst Black Dahlia variant to face. And some even talk about Psychomander and Unfazed, but I think Black Dahlia is the queen of cheese. Moving on to Sarabella, who has a very decent amount of good variants, including Big Top, which makes you resurrect with 10% health, gain invisible and unflinching for 6 whole seconds. You have Blitz and Glamour, so you just gain immunity and regen just by being in your side. And you also have Armed Forces, which makes you gain unflinching and armor for 5 seconds if she's hit or if she hits you, like 10% chance. But a lot of people agree that the best one is Mecha Star. So, what does the signature ability do? If none of Sarabella's blockbusters are fully charged, just remember, Sarabella isn't really a fighter who has a lot of haste and stuff like that. Gain Enrage for 5 seconds and 5% blockbuster meter every 3 seconds while not blocking. So, just by existing and probably just attacking, she can just progressively charge her blockbuster meter and give herself more damage. And then we move on to the second signature ability, which is Gain Barrier and Inflict Curse for 15 seconds when using a blockbuster. Yep, totally fair. Also, while benefiting from Enrage, which was mentioned in the previous signature ability, in case, anyways, so 3% chance on hit to instantly defeat the opponent if they have less than 30% health. I've seen a Reddit post talking about what are the best Sarabella variants in your opinion, and then he goes, I'll show mine, shows Mecha Star, and everyone agrees because She's just too strong. Like, really? Okay, here's a weakness. Alright, let's completely remove that. Yeah, if you don't have a blockbuster, you gain these cool buffs. And you can even charge your own blockbuster meter. Okay, you got your blockbuster meter, get yourself barrier, and the other will not dare to get a buff for 15 seconds. And then, in case you're enraged, just kill the other while you're at it. Last but not least, Double. Double is honestly the craziest fighter I've ever seen. Her variants, each one has something ridiculous. Like this one, if you have the same element as your opponent, 50% chance to mirror all of their buffs. Like, just whenever they get a buff, you mirror it. We also have Double-licious, which is 10% on hit to transfer one buff from to opponent to yourself, and transfer the buff to opponent. We have Flippin' Jawbreaker, which is gaining a buff just by transmuting, and gain extra damage and stuff. We also have Creature of Habit and so many things. But I think the best not like a double variant, it just has to be the base one. I know it's shocking. I know it's ridiculous that a bronze variant, especially just the base one, would be considered broken. Or just cheesy in general. But just look at the signature ability. When at an elemental advantage, gain 1 random buffs for 10 seconds anytime the opponent gains a buff. So, it's not even a chance. You are granted to get a buff whenever the other receives a buff. And mind you, this is double. She can change her element whenever she wants. So, being at elemental advantage, makes sense with her. But just gaining a random buff for 10 seconds whenever they gain a buff, even if their buff is like, 3 seconds? Oh no, yours is like 10 seconds. And then again, when you're at an elemental advantage, this is the second signature ability, inflict 1 random debuff for 10 seconds after suffering any debuff. I've seen a clip of someone clapping a team of diamonds, like each one 44k, by a 7k, nonsense. And the opponent had 20 active buffs, but that wasn't enough. No. You'd see a tiny buff in the middle of a wave of red circles, and that one would just keep spamming, and of course, since one of the debuffs included guard break, that guy would use the 6, the blockbuster that is basically the misfortune heads, and then just keep spamming, and the bot would just be helpless, unable to defend. And that's why I think nonsense is the most ridiculous double variant. I hope you liked this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.